So real quickly, I'm going to go over the format for tonight's program. So each candidate will be allowed a 90-second opening statement. We're going to ask a total of 7 questions tonight. Each question you will also have 90 seconds to answer. There will be 3 questions that are general questions that every candidate will answer. And then we have 4 questions that are specific to each place. I'm going to alternate in between the candidates. So for instance, on the first question, I'll ask Mark, and then the second question, I'll start with Maxfield. At the end, we will also allow for a 90-second closing statement, and we will probably take a break somewhere in the middle of the program. Samantha Brown from our chamber will be our timer. So the yellow indicates you have 30 seconds to respond or to finish your statement, and then red indicates that your time is up. So does anyone have any questions? All right. We will begin with opening statements, starting with Mark Gleason, who is a candidate for City Council Place 1.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for everyone hosting tonight's candidate forum. And thank you to the audience for attending and showing interest in local government. My name is Mark Gleason. My wife and I lived in San Marcos on the east side of I-35 in a home which we purchased nearly 20 years ago. Originally, I'm from a hardworking Midwestern farm family who also owned multiple small businesses. Early in my life, I learned how government could impact the success and failure of those businesses through burdensome regulation and taxes. I've always enjoyed serving my community and helping my neighbors. I have participated in neighborhood and river cleanups. I have also served on the Neighborhood Commission, Community Improvement Task Force, and the Bond Committee, or the Bond Committee, as it's mostly known. Currently, I am Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I am convinced that local government makes an enormous impact in each of our lives daily. I want to serve my community on City Council as a voice between local government, small businesses, and entrepreneurs, and their impact that it can have on our lives every day. Thank you very much.
Next, we will have Maxfield Baker.
Good evening, San Marcos. Thank you all for having me. Oh, you turned it back on there. Good evening, San Marcos, and thank you all for having me here. I am going to speak to you tonight from my heart. I do believe there's a lot of value in preparing statements, but most important to me is being candid and authentic in the way that I'm going to represent San Marcos. I moved here from the Rio Grande Valley in 2007 to attend Texas State University and am a proud alumnus with a degree in anthropology and political science as a double major. My focus is on understanding cultural implications of policy and making sure that we have buy-in for the policies that we're setting forth for our community. So as your city council member, I'm going to continue to work to bring more affordable housing to our area, protect our water resources, and help encourage small businesses and entrepreneurs to fill in our downtown area. I think it's incredibly important, and I'm so happy to see this room filled tonight, to get people out, registered to vote, getting them to the polls, regardless of who they're gonna support in this campaign. So I hope that I inspire just a few people, one direction or the other, to get to the polls this November and make sure that you vote and that you vote your conscience. Thank you all very much, and I hope you support me for Place 1. My name again is Maxfield Baker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank y'all for being here. My name is Saul Gonzalez. I'm the City Councilman, Place 2. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and most of y'all probably know me by now. I've been married for 32 years. I have 4 children and 3 that graduated Texas State. My youngest is now a senior. Hopefully she's going to graduate in December, and I'm done. I've been employed at Central Texas Medical Center for 28 years. I'm a businessman in San Marcos as well. And I'm just honored to serve y'all guys. It's been an experience being a council member. I learned to be fair and have an open mind. When I first came in, I came in with some ideas, but being a council member, you start finding out how things really work. And I just want to continue serving y'all as well. But that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Devin Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Devin Barrett. I am a college student at Texas State University, a senior. I'm a political science major, and I've lived in San Marcos since 2016. I've been a member of the San Marcos Human Services Advisory Board since 2017, and I love this city. It's truly a unique city, and I think while Austin might trademark the weird city, I think San Marcos is truly unique in everything that it offers, not just in the state of Texas, but nationwide. I think San Marcos deserves more than it has. I think we need better housing, a cleaner river, and I think we need more parking. As the city grows, I think our infrastructure needs to grow. Thank you.
And last, we have Lisa Marie Copoletta.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Lisa Marie Copoletta. I've lived in San Marcos for 30 years. I've been teaching speech communication studies for 3 decades, and I'm a team builder. One thing I wanted to say is that I've served on the Neighborhood Commission as well as the Art Commission, and with a background in communication, it will be easy for me to improve the dialogue between the business community and that of the City Council, which has been lacking. Additionally, where are the incentives for builders and realtors and developers when it comes to mud and TERS and PIDs? Why must these always be attached to employment centers? I say the city needs to keep an open playing field and deliver on what they promised and finish what they started. Now, we've heard a lot of talk about the core 4. I think we should focus on the essential 2, the business community and the taxpayer. Thank you for your time.
All right, our first question will be for Place 1 candidates, and the topic is affordable housing. While San Marcos is rich in natural beauty, resources, and culture, our citizens, to a large extent, are economically disadvantaged. This, coupled with the popularity of our region and the accelerated growth we are experiencing, makes the issue of finding affordable housing that much more difficult for people in our community. What role do you think our city should play in addressing the issue of affordable housing, and what city strategies do you see as most effective in achieving affordable housing?
Well, first off, without good paying jobs and the opportunities for citizens to thrive, it'll be very difficult to impact the affordable housing question. So one of the first things I will try to do, and I will encourage the city to do, is try to bring good paying jobs. I think without that, we will struggle in a housing option. The things that the city can do are use the flexibility that Code SMTX has given us. There are some flexibility in some of the options in the different styles of housing. That's why I've supported some of the things that have come before planning and zoning for some of those options. Keeping taxes low. One of the things that can keep people in their homes is bringing in new jobs, but also a diversification of the property tax base so we can actually give individual homeowners a property tax break. I think those are the 3 things of jobs, property taxes, and opportunities should help encourage home ownership, along with the things that Code SMTX has put into place. We've put into place with the Land Development Code to give us some flexibility on some different types of styles of housing.
I believe the city's role in affordable housing is not just to consider the supply of it, but the actual form of it. So a lot of times we hear that our issue is that we just simply do not have enough housing to solve this issue. And frankly, when we look at the density that we see in other cities, we see that density does not necessarily bring the price down. So what we need to do is leverage the city's resources to help bring more affordable players to our town. People that are willing to build something that is not a cost burden on some of the more suffering members of our community. I believe that some ways that we can achieve that are using things like community land banks, as well as basically understanding how the appraisal process works and empowering our citizens to fight what they believe to be an unjust appraisal of their property. We all know that this has become a big issue, and we see that while our taxes aren't necessarily going up, those appraisals are. And that's what's becoming a burden to a lot of the members of our community. Now, we talked in the last budget session, the city council kind of discussed the possibility of freezing that tax rate, and I don't think that that's quite the solution, because that might create more budget shortfalls for us in the long run. So I think that the city needs to have a more holistic approach and focus on bringing in developers that are willing to build a product that is affordable.
All right. Place 2, your topic is property rights versus historic preservation. This past June, the San Marcos City Council called a special meeting to address changes to the demolition permit review ordinance. As you know, this act received many mixed reactions. Knee-jerk or not, this has raised many concerns in our local business community. What assurances can you provide to business owners, potential business owners, and landowners that they should not fear over-regulation and a burdensome permitting process? Where is the balance between historic preservation and property rights?
Well, that's a real hard question, but I'm going to do my best. I believe in property rights, there's no doubt. But when it comes to our historical district, there's some buildings that definitely have to be looked at before they're knocked down and teared apart. They bring a lot of it's a lot of culture into those buildings, and instead of us just getting a permit or a contractor getting a permit to knock that down, I think it should go through a process and see the merits, and maybe give the city an option or someone else an option to buy that out. But that's my stand on it, and that's why I voted to extend that period of 6 months, I believe it was, to make sure we can vet those things out. Thank you.
San Marcos. Yeah.
Sorry, we only have one microphone for all of y'all.
San Marcos is historic. We are one of the longest inhabited places in Americas, and I think to have that is crucial. And we should do everything we can to protect every historical site in the city. And while property rights is extremely important, and I would never infringe on property rights, we do have to take into consideration what the city's history is and what kind of culture we want to show to the rest of the world that come to San Marcos and Texas State University and see everything that we have. We have to protect both property rights and historical sites.
I have a wonderful track record fighting eminent domain, whether it's a roundabout or a sidewalk, and I think it's unfortunate the way that the City Council was reactive. That historical resources survey has been out since February, and under the cloak of darkness, all of a sudden, as a reactionary with that blue telephone building, suddenly they want to change a workflow. And people, I'm sorry, they had a right to demolish that building, but what happened was it became an antithetical us-them versus scenario versus us open and honest having a conversation. We've known since February we have that resources survey, but the City Council has not been transparent, and this has put the business community in a bind. And quite frankly, it seemed to me that the optics were more to protect their political careers than open and honest communication with the business community, putting you guys in a situation to actually follow the rules, because the rules are there, right? And you guys are following the rules, but instead we don't have open dialogue. Now, as far as a level playing field, the rules need to be out there and we all need to follow. We don't just change the rules midstream because suddenly the public is alarmed. And that's with me, you're gonna get someone who's on the ball and I'm watching what they're doing and I'm open and transparent. And if we have those documents, we need to stick by them. And quite frankly, the business community was shut out of that dialogue. I appreciate your question.
Actually, we're gonna start with you. Just move on. Okay, next question is a general question that I will have all of you answer, and I'm happy to repeat it if I need to. And the topic is on growth. As we all know, San Marcos is growing, consistently ranking as one of the fastest growing cities in the country, best places to retire, and top university town. For years, we have watched our neighbors to the north continually fail in dealing with their growth. Austin donned the attitude, if we don't build it, they won't come. And as anyone who has sat in Austin traffic knows, that did not work and people are still coming. As our neighbors continue to pay the price for inaction, there are many lessons we can learn from them in what not to do. What are your priorities when it comes to managing growth and preparing for the San Marcos of the future? Be specific as possible.
Well, I absolutely agree with something Mr. Gleason said, is that we need jobs. I commute, and they call it slaughter for a reason, because you get stuck in traffic for 30 minutes trying to get to your location, okay? So that means we need to make sure that these streets we can get through, we start a project, we finish it in a timely manner, we don't, I mean, look at the whole town, it's just all ripped up. The jobs are important, they talk about affordable housing, but people like me who've been teaching for 30 years, we have to commute. Additionally, I think that we need to have incentives for builders who have green building products. We have wonderful products for upscale housing, and some of those developments are quite frankly, they're absolutely beautiful. They've taken great care to protect those trees and green spaces and so forth. I think we have a lot of people in this community with a panoramic vision and have passion for San Marcos. The problem is that we're not having enough dialogue, and a lot of that is getting lockjam at the city management level, and with me and the city council, that's going to stop. There's going to be open communication dialogue with those who are the property taxes, as well as our business owners, and that's something that's been lacking for some time. Thank you.
I think this city is growing, and we see that at Texas State University, where it's extremely densely populated and everybody is just in one place. And I think part of that is parking. It's unrelated, but parking is completely an issue when it comes to densely populated areas. We see parking issues all over campus and all over downtown. And I think what our neighbors to the north and to the south, they really don't see the aspect of how parking kind of affects everything at the more local level. And I think if I'm elected to the city council, parking would be a huge priority for that, because density equals parking.
Thank you. We got to be realistic with ourselves. Growth is coming, and it's coming really fast. The university's growing left and right. Our housing market is also growing left and right. And those are big concerns. I think one of the most important things we should have is probably the infrastructure before we start doing all this rezoning. I think that's crucial to have that first in place to be able to manage the traffic from point A to point B. But keep in mind, growth with homes is not a bad idea. Those bring property taxes. And right now, our budget is maybe 30% out of taxes, and maybe our sales tax is 30-something%. Before, we were relying on sales tax quite a bit for our budget. But when we get more homes and developing here in San Marcos, I think that's good and is healthy for San Marcos. That's all I got to say, but I think infrastructure is one of the most important things when it comes to growth.
I would have to agree with Councilmember Gonzalez that a lot of times our infrastructure is lacking to support the amount of density that is being asked for. I do serve as a planning and zoning commissioner, and a lot of my decision process is based around whether the streets and the sidewalks are there to support that kind of infrastructure in addition to transportation. And so all too often we're trying to balance our growth between density and sprawl. We all understand and have seen the reports that sprawl is not very tenable, and density does have some merit to it, but it's a matter of not what it is, it's where it is. We need to figure out the right places to put these densities, and to me, the key for that is the infrastructure that's in place for it. If we want to encourage more density along our cores or along other neighborhoods, then we need to improve their roads and their sidewalks so that those are tenable to that kind of density. We cannot just assume that we're going to build up without the infrastructure in place. As Mr. Barrett said, we have a parking issue, and a lot of times what our investors and the developers are asking for is for us to build more density and reduce parking, and I don't think that that's going to be a solution for us.
Growth is going to happen, and it's something I don't think we need to be scared of. Without it, we can't expand the tax base, improve job opportunities, and provide more housing opportunities. And I think things that we've worked really hard on with the Land Development Code put some of those things in place where we can balance growth with environmental challenges. That's why I did support things like Mystic Canyon and the Smart Terminal. I think without things that we put in place with the Land Development Code, I think I may not have supported them. So I think that the staff and the City Council and Planning Zoning Commission and the community worked very hard on putting that document in place. And I think we can use that as a guiding document to help manage growth and not be scared of it, to expand the tax base, to bring down property taxes, to bring new jobs and new opportunities to the city.
All right, thank you. So question 4 is also for place 1. Your topic is workforce and talent retention. If you talk to any HR director in San Marcos, they will tell you the same thing. They are hiring. From the talent on the Hill, Texas State, to the talent coming out of our local school system, San Marcos is primed for job growth and career growth. That being said, many San Marcos residents are underemployed and most Texas State students are unable to stay after graduation. What do you believe is the greatest workforce development challenge in San Marcos, and how do you propose we as a community address it?
Being a retail manager, I've employed hundreds of people in town, and I wish I could have, through the opportunities that I had through my business or through the corporation, to pay them more money, to give them opportunities to advance their career and to make better money. I approve of the 380 agreement process, the GSMEP, and what the council put into place previously of $15 a minimum for tax abatements. I think those are incentives we can give to corporations to bring jobs in here as opportunities. And I don't think that is a too low a wage for a starting opportunity for people that may be working retail in my type of industry that are making 20 now to make 30 or 35, let alone advancements in manufacturing processes and things like that that we may see in the future and take advantage of. I think we can take advantage of that and partner with the university and put those kids to work for the corporations we can intend to try to bring here.
Part of, I'm turning that off.
I don't want to slam it.
That's fine. So part of my work history is that I actually worked in human resources for what was formerly Customer Research International, a telephone survey company, so yes, we called you at dinner. But what we focused on was we hired hundreds of people throughout my tenure there. And what became very clear is we are lacking in necessary skills such as typing and being able to read a script out loud, and that starts at the high school level. So I think we need to work much closer with our work development resources, our Texas Workforce Solutions, get them involved to help make sure we have the proper training in place, as well as Gary Job Corps. But the reality is that these jobs that even the university is offering don't pay a whole lot. So they're not the cash cow that we need. They're not the type of business that's going to open up and unlock this opportunity for people. What I think we need to focus on from a city level is instead of handing out these tax abatements to these large corporations, I think we need to start empowering a lot of our smaller and local businesses and legacy businesses that have been here and have shown that they are dedicated to staying in San Marcos instead of somebody that is coming here to make a profit that doesn't really have the tenure here to suggest that they're going to be here in the long run. I think agencies, like the loss of Tuttle Lumber, for instance, was a tragedy. And now what we're seeing is an apartment complex go up over it. If we were able to support our small businesses and help them pay higher wages to their employees, I think that would be the best start for San Marcos.
All right, place 2, your topic is beautification. First impressions are lasting. Believe it or not, in communities around the country, beautification efforts play an active role in economic development. According to a study by the Federal Reserve Bank and MIT, a city with twice as many picturesque locations as another city saw 10% growth or greater in population and jobs from 1990 to 2010. In fact, urban beauty ties with lower taxes as the most important predictor of overall population growth in cities. How would you support beautification efforts in San Marcos, and what do you think is the top beautification priority for San Marcos today?
beautification of San Marcos is crucial, and I think on the council, we start with the river. The one thing that has kind of stayed constant in the city long before any of us. And I think to do that, we have to kind of continue to make sure the river stays clean and picturesque as possible. It's kind of our crown jewel, and we don't want our crown jewel to be muggy and dirty and everything like that. I think as a city councilman, I would push for more projects. I would push for more murals and statues, because those help the cities. Those help bring more people in the city, and even me, I just started looking at the statues when they popped up, and I had no idea where they came from, but I liked them. So I think everybody else would like them. I think we have to kind of push for beauty in all aspects for the city, because the city is beautiful and deserves to have as many people as possible in here. Thank you.
I think the city's done a great job with all the murals, and I love all those statues around town. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed that wonderful green space. Have y'all seen that? That's behind the brewery there downtown. Do you remember that old building? There was an old moldy building. There was a bunch of barrels that were stacked up there. That was one of my pet projects about 10 years ago. I called the TCEQ, and in 24 hours, they hauled off all of those barrels that would have been projectiles in a flood. You know what I'm talking about, that building that was behind that Aqua Brew. And so that's something as a maverick that I took care of. These were small businesses in our community that had been contacting the city for years. And in one day, through a state watchdog agency, we got that taken care of. Now, as far as my high priority, I'm shocked that the development community is held to a higher standard of tree preservation than the city itself. The city can come through my yard and chop down my heritage live oaks for a sidewalk, but y'all have to jump through all sorts of loops. I say that we hold our city accountable to the same rules that they're holding to you when it comes to heritage live oaks, and I'm a historical preservationist. Y'all know I live on Belvin. I've taken quite a lot of pain to make sure that my house is brought to its heyday. So we need to continue to protect what is here before it's gone forever. So I would say things like trees and our historical assets, as well as the river, but then we also have community. The people in this community who need jobs, who want to stay in their houses. They're being taxed because those property taxes keep going up. Thank you for listening.
Well, I'm glad to say that we do have a process for beautification. We do have a fund for that. And that's the results for the mermaids and everything that we got, all the statues and everything else. But it goes a little bit further than that. I think beautification also is helping the low income with their homes that are in pretty bad condition. I think it would put some funds to that to help those folks to fix their homes. And when people come to San Marcos, they can see those nice old homes. They're well kept. I think that's another avenue we should go to when it comes to beautification. Consider old homes as well, people that are struggling, to make sure that their homes are kept up. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for another general question that you will all answer. This is about the role of City Council. The city charter states that council enacts policies, adopts ordinances and resolutions, establishes the annual budget to provide services to the public, sets the city tax rate, and water and electric and wastewater rates for San Marcos. In addition to these duties, what do you see as the most important role of a city council member?
I believe city council members' main objective is to be a voice for the people that they're serving. So all too often we find that our citizens are frustrated with the perception of the process, that they feel left out or that things are being taken care of behind the scenes. And I believe that that is the biggest tragedy that we face in San Marcos, because if that continues, more and more citizens will become disengaged. So I think what we need to do is hold our city staff accountable and bring more transparency forward. As academic advisors at Texas State, they're required to keep track of every single piece of communication that they have with students and be able to pass that on to their bosses if necessary or for an audit. In that same vein, our city staff should be able to benchmark and give us all of the conversations that they've had with the developers, similar to how we would expect lobbyists to be handled, and make sure that we are seeing that conversation when it comes to our packet at City Council. All too often, we don't quite understand why a developer was guided in a specific direction, and that clarity would help us see why they chose a CUP maybe over a rezoning. So I believe that transparency is the #1 fight that a city council member can really truly make an impact for and bring that voice of San Marcos to the limelight.
As Max said, we need to be representative of the people. We need to be part of the community. We need to listen to everyone, from the business owners, to the homeowners, to the renters, to the university, and be part of the community just like everybody else and not above it. And as someone who went through the flooding process in 2015, I understand some of the things and the struggles that parts of town have had to deal with those impacts. And the biggest thing we can do, like I said, is represent the people and be part of the community and do everything we can to listen to every single citizen and business owner in the community.
Well, one of the roles that we do in City Council is make sure that we stay within balance and make sure we have a healthy fund balance as well. At this time that we're living in, we don't know what could happen 5 years from now. We want to make sure we have enough funds here to pay our employees. And I can honestly say that we have a healthy fund balance. That's very important to me. Another role that we do is make the budget, CIPs, and things of that nature. One thing that we don't do, no individual in the council can tell the city manager what to do. It has to come from the whole council. And that's one thing I'm really proud of, because there's no one that's going to go up there and tell them, you better do this. It doesn't work that way. It has to come from the whole council, or the majority of the council. That's all I got to say for that. Thank you.
I think the city council is crucial to be a help desk and a place for resources for citizens. Citizens should be able to come to the city council. They should be able to Gmail, they should be able to email or message their city council member and just say, hey, I have this problem, can you help? And that citizen should have every amount of trust possible to know that that city council member and the entire city council is going to do something about that, because we are not just a city, but we are a community, and I think the city council represents the community as a whole. Thank you.
My experience as being a very active member in this community is that the city manager is not listening to the neighbors nor the business community. And I can cite numerous examples in which neighbors will come in 10 to 20 deep and they will be completely ditched by the city manager. I know this is also occurring in the business community. We have no diversity right now in the city council. I'm a fiscal conservative. We need someone to watch that budget. They haven't been watching that CIP budget, as exemplified by some of the things that I've called attention to in the open forum. Additionally, we must have dialogue, and that relates to my opening statement. We need someone to make sure that we're not only looking at the grand big pictures, the strategic initiatives of the year, but also the day-to-day nuts and bolts. And oftentimes I have experience from conversations with people, taxpayers and business owners in this community, that is not necessarily happening. Additionally, we need to be much more aggressive with incentives for builders that are using green products and innovative standards that keep our town not only sustainable, but beautiful as well. Thank you.
Our next topic is going to be city staff recommendations. In most communities, when city staff recommends approval and a project has satisfied all the criteria as set by the city leaders, more often than not, these projects are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and subsequently City Council. In San Marcos, city staff recommendations are often overlooked or dismissed. Where do you believe is the disconnect? How do you propose we provide any kind of predictability to people looking to invest in our community?
it is a challenge anytime at the dais that we have to make a vote on a project, whether it be a development, a rezoning change, anything along those lines. Staff is going to recommend approval if it meets all the criteria, but zoning is still an issue that can come up regardless of what actually is the criteria if it's met. It is still discretionary. And what I do for every vote that I make is I take each one of them on a case-by-case basis. For the most part, I take staff's recommendations and we do approve. I have voted in favor of most things that staff has recommended. Have I voted for everything? No. Does it create some instability? Yes, it does. And I think staff should know how planning and zoning and council thinks along those levels and pass that information to the person applying for the permit as much as so that the permit applicant kind of understands the situation the council is already in and what planning and zoning has approved and not approved in the past.
I'll check it out in a second. So, a lot of what we see coming before us at planning and zoning, when we see the approval, staff recommends approval, we go down and they have a box list of criteria, and some of those, staff will admit, are subjective. And so there is the ability for us at a P&Z and at a city council level to interject, and the reason for that is, staff is in the weeds on this all day. They truly are the experts here, and I don't doubt that. But oftentimes, as I mentioned in a previous statement, we don't have all the information. And when we ask questions, we need to get direct answers. We can't just be muddled under or muddled over and shown, oh, well, they just don't understand this because they're not engineers, or they don't understand water, or they don't understand housing. That is not their job. Their job is to explain that stuff to us. We're not always going to be in the field of business that is the expert on something. So city staff needs to understand who they're talking to, right? The number one aspect of speaking is knowing your audience. So they should be able to explain that to the developers and get them to understand what the overall sense is from the strategic initiatives and the direction that city council has given them to figure out how to smooth that process over and to make it more amenable to all of us.
Oh, you get a different question. You get a different question. That's all right. Okay. Your topic is town and gown.
Town and gown.
Yes. All right. San Marcos enjoys the benefits of a very diverse population. We're home to both permanent residents as well as university residents attending Texas State University. In many cities wherein a large university resides, the relationship between the permanent residents and university residents can often create conflict, becoming strained and divisive, leading to a town versus gown relationship. Rather than working together as one community, the university and town can step on each other's toes or even flat out ignore one another in the pursuit of separate goals. However, the benefit of aligning priorities and cultivating a stronger relationship are plentiful for both sides. If elected or re-elected to City Council, how would you foster and grow the relationship between the university residents and the permanent residents of San Marcos?
First of all, I think I will reach out to the president of the university and let her know how crucial it is to us to have a good dialogue between both parties. I think we both can live here in harmony. I think a lot of our college kids end up staying in San Marcos because it's a great place to live. Granted, when they're young and 21, 22, they're gonna do what kids do. We've been there, done that. But once you grow up a little bit, you become good, productive citizens. But what I like to see is a better dialogue with the university. We've been trying to improve that in the last 2.5 years since I've been on the dais, and to no avail. But I'm going to keep on trying and see where we can go. Thank you.
Well, I'm a student, so I think having a student on the city council would already greatly improve relationships. I think to ensure that Texas State University and the city of San Marcos have a great working relationship. It's to itemize and find out what issues we both can agree on. We both want a clean river. We both want to provide housing, not just for students, but for San Martians that have been here for 20, 30, 50 years. We all want to have an economy that is ever evolving, that evolves not just with the state, but with the nation, so that when there is ever an economic downturn or recession, San Marcos is not hurting from it, but thriving through it. I also just want to point out that while students are sometimes temporary, I think a lot of them consider themselves locals as well. I consider myself a local, and I think most of them would be more than happy to say that this is their home, and they are more than happy and more than willing to do something about it to make it even better.
I don't think the City Council's done near enough for open communication with Texas State University. We need to be much more aggressive and much more proactive, and that means opening the voices not only for our business community, but those of our residents. I think that event that they have going on with the mermaids, they're going to have a symposium with various experts of the field here in our community. I think that is an awesome start because it's allowing people with different skill sets to come to a table in a symposium fashion and deconstruct the key issues, some of them crises facing our community. I would like to have some sort of symposium where we invite Texas State and we have a robust attendance of those who are committed to historic preservation, those who are committed to our river, our business community, our green builders and our developers to have a voice, a dialogue out in the open public forum, not closed door meetings where we're wondering whatever happened with that dialogue, because lots of us have concerns. And quite frankly, you never see any report out now, do you, during the city council meetings? Rarely do you get any instance of what kind of communication is going on right now between our city council members, our elected officials, and those up on the Hill. As an elected official, I will be very transparent with those conversations, and I will invite the business community to be part of that dialogue, as well as those of us in the neighborhoods who are very concerned about many issues that are not being addressed.
Okay, this is another general question for all of you. The topic is initiatives as city council member. As a city council member, you will have the opportunity to influence and direct initiatives for our community. If elected or re-elected, what initiatives will be or will continue to be top priorities for you, and what active steps will you take to affect change in those areas?
That's a wonderful question. As a fiscal conservative, I'm not going to be throwing out the flavor of the month initiative, and that's what we've been getting. We need to stick to the plan. If they've crafted a strategic initiative for workforce housing, then we need to finish that. If we have a code that has some holes in it, we need to tighten those up. And we need to make sure that everybody's staying in their lane and we have an equal playing field. I'm not going to come in with some new initiative. I've been in this community for 30 years, and many of us are very attuned to the problems. And we need to focus. First of all, we need to finish the flooding. We need that infrastructure in place. And those folks have been waiting for 4 years now for that to come to fruition. There are a lot of other small business things that we've been talking about that we need to finalize. So I say, like I did in my opening statement, we need to finish what we start and quit starting with the new in vogue initiative. And y'all know very much that that also means, once again, incentive to green builders, as well as those who want to make sure that we keep our natural environment in its pristine state.
I think elected to the city council, I would push for a renters commission to be established. I think if we had a kind of an organ that would be directly responsible for making sure that people who rent in the city or who just rent their apartment or their home around, they should be able to have a place where they can get resources and they can voice their concerns. They should be able to have a kind of beacon to voice their concerns and find help when in terms of housing. We have a 70 to 30% ratio when it comes to renting and housing. And to kind of fix that, I think we should work on bringing more into renting, and we should try and better the standards that we have, because with 70% renting, there's bound to be problems, and those problems could be solved if we had a renter's commission.
It's a good question. It's a tough question as well. But I want to touch on some other subjects real quick as well. Earlier we talked about Texas State, and one thing that I would like to see is a partnership on when it comes to downtown, policing downtown. We have a lot of crime, and our San Marcos PD spends a lot of hours out there. I'd like to see them join us and also work downtown with their police force. And I think if the students see their presence out there, it would really help. Them seeing their own officers up there, I think would be a big plus. That's one way that I would like to get Texas State to participate with us, is join our forces downtown. We talked about rental property here as well. You're right, there's about 70% rental property in San Marcos. And the only way we can solve that, and I think one of my colleagues said it earlier, is jobs. And we're working with a greater partnership in San Marcos, and we're getting those jobs, good jobs. They take time, but they're coming. And I'm really excited about that. There's a lot of things that we have to work on, and I'm going out of what you asked, but this is an opportunity for me to hit other areas. Flooding, it's an issue. And I wish we could fix the flooding overnight, but we can't. There's a process, there's engineers. It doesn't happen that quickly. I wish it would, but it doesn't. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I would like to continue our strong efforts on affordable housing. I think one of the areas, as it's been mentioned before, is we need to focus not only on renters, but people that have been established in their homes for a long time to avoid displacement. It's one of the most tragic reasons that we see our housing situation in such peril, is because not only do we have folks that are no longer able to afford their rent or no longer able to afford their property taxes, but we also see folks that live in apartment complexes that are seasonably displaced by the raising rents. So when we go and we're talking with these organizations and these developers, we need to make sure that we are bringing that to the forefront and trying to figure out what the actual issue is there so that we can help keep people in place. The more folks move around, the more complicated our housing situation is going to remain. On top of that, I agree with the sentiment that some of our flooding still does not seem solved. We removed that as a strategic initiative recently because we have a lot of flooding mitigation projects in line. I believe that before we increase any more density in those areas, we need to ensure that those projects are finished. I live over in Rio Vista Terrace, and had that flooding mitigation not been done by the railroad track, my neighborhood would have flooded in 2015. So I'm incredibly thankful, and I have seen the power that these projects can bring, and I know that that's what we need to do to make sure that no other folks in San Marcos are displaced by floods in the future.
Number one, jobs. Without jobs, without the expansion of the economy, without the expansion of the tax base to the city, we cannot alleviate the property tax burden that we have in town and make homes affordable enough if they don't have the jobs to pay for them. Number two, of course, is taxes. Once we expand the economy and we ride the wave that hopefully we will continue to ride for the next few years in Central Texas and the region, we can take that money and alleviate some of the burden on the lower income, moderate income homeowners. Flood mitigation was on the list for council. They did take it off, and I am very proud of some of the projects that we have coming down the pike. Are some of them being done slowly? Yes. But I am hopeful that some of the projects that we have will come to fruition. And of course, without flood mitigation in a lot of the city, we can't do a lot of the things we want to do. And take advantage of what we worked on in the Land Development Code. We put restrictions in place and things in place to try to take advantage of growth over the aquifer, in the floodplains, and do it and try to do it in a safe manner.
Okay, we only have 2 questions left and then closing statements, so I'm just going to truck on through, right? That's fine. All right, this topic is local business community. Currently, businesses in San Marcos employ over 30,000 people and represent a majority of the local tax base. How will you involve the business community in citywide discussions and help bridge the gap between private citizens and the local business community?
One of the biggest things council can do is try to encourage and get out of the way of those local businesses. We can try to streamline the CUP process, try to make permits and fees more affordable, bring down the property taxes that they also have to pay, and try to encourage citizens that can come here and work for those small businesses or stay in town from the university. We have to have dialogue between the council and from staff and to the business community. There can't be the separation, and we need to encourage the local community to participate in going to those local businesses. They cannot thrive on the university alone. So the more we can try to integrate the citizens of the community and the business community and council and bring everyone together in forums like this, on local dialogue, that's how we can try to continue to put everybody together.
I believe that one of the issues that we see with businesses is we want to solve their problems for them. And as everybody knows, nobody likes to be told what to do. So I think when we see a situation like our second Saturday, formerly Third Thursdays, where we're throwing money at certain businesses to help them be more successful, but not helping other ones in different areas because they're not part of downtown, that is only going to push them further to the outside. So it is important to revitalize our downtown, but we need to make sure that we aren't leaving people out in the wind. We need to make sure that we're taking care of businesses, again, that have been here for a long time, our legacy to our community. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, if we can offer them some sort of tax incentive, I think that that's the right thing to do. But simply throwing money at them and saying, hey, have a party for everybody, that's going to bring you more business, that has not worked. I've participated in many Third Thursdays and Second Saturdays, and I don't spend money at those things. That's not what I'm being called to do. There's bands here, there's bands there, there's drinks there. So people are just rotating around those things and not necessarily shopping. If we want to encourage those businesses, I think things like helping their small businesses with signage is the right way to start, as well as helping them have a solid foot at the table by having these kind of conversations more regularly.
So this is the last question of the night. Your topic is leadership. And I'm going to start with 2 quotes. Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. Leaders who are good navigators are capable of taking their people just about anywhere. That's by John Maxwell. And to quote Donald H. McCannon, leadership is action, not position. There are different levels of leadership, including positional leadership, which is given, and influential leadership, which is earned. While not mutually exclusive, it is common to have positional leadership without influential leadership. As a city council member, you will sit in a position of leadership and be responsible for making decisions on behalf of all the residents of San Marcos. Please describe your leadership qualities and how you can be a leader of influence and not just position.
Thank you. I think my leadership qualities are, I'm undoubtedly a great listener. I'm probably a little bit more quieter than I should be. But also, listening is thorough. It's thinking through every option, thinking through every policy idea. It's making sure that every base is covered before you make a complete decision. And I think my leadership style is listen to all outcomes, listen to all aspects, and make a decision from there. Work with other people and see where everybody can kind of come together and unite around a common goal. That's what true leadership to me is.
Y'all, I teach leadership in my business communication class, and we talk about all different types of leaders. I would label myself a transformational leader, which means I like to elevate everybody who is on the team, whether it's someone who is new to the team or someone who's been working with the team. Now that means that when you look at the big picture and then the small details. I'm a public policy researcher with a 30-year track record here in this community. I've been a maverick. I've given you examples of how small businesses have complained about toxic waste dump. The next day we got that cleaned up. I follow the rules, but I also see how the rules can be applied so that they're fair, and oftentimes that's not happening. I would appreciate the opportunity to serve you for your voice to become part of that conversation. That's what a transformational leader does. Someone like Steve Jobs. They're global thinkers, they're big picture thinkers, but they also look at the details, and everybody's voice on that team becomes important. Steve Jobs ran those teams by teams. He stepped back, he let them do their work, and then they would implement that. There wasn't any micromanaging, and often what you're finding from the city staff perspective is they're micromanaging not only the business community, but those of the neighbors. But then when concerns erupt, suddenly we're locked out of the process. With me, that's not going to happen. The field of communication is going to be fair and open and transparent.
Leadership for me is someone who's going to listen, not only listen, but act on whatever you told them. I don't often speak very much in the dais, but when I hear concerns from individuals, I guarantee you I address those concerns. I'll talk to staff, and I said, look, if they're right, I want answers. If they're not right, I will call them back up and tell them, hey, this is why this cannot be done. But if it has to be done and it's needed, I'm going to push it. Like I said, maybe I don't say very much in the dais, but I really listen to y'all guys. I return your calls. I think out of 97% of the calls that I received, maybe just a few that I couldn't get back to. And I encourage you to reach out to me. You know, I know quite a bit of y'all, but I'm easy to talk to, and I do listen. And I think that's a good leader. Someone's going to act on those things, and someone's going to say what they say they're going to do. And I think I've done that being in the dais. I promised that I would get some dialogue with Texas State. That didn't happen, but it did happen with the school district and the county. And it's working for us at this time. It's a good partnership. Thank you.
Okay, so that was our question. And now we're up for the closing statements. We're gonna go in order of place and then alphabetically. So you have 90 seconds for your closing statement.
Again, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here, and those of you that applauded, I appreciate that as well. I want to say again that my name is Maxfield Baker, and I am maybe perceived as a little confrontational by some of you here in this crowd. And I want to address that. I think what we need is to confront these issues and these perceptions. If what we are seeing is the same old practice, then we're going to continue to hear our citizens be frustrated with the process and feel left and locked out. And I think that what we need to do is have a serious conversation. If you think that you need to get in my face a little bit and I need to get back in yours so that we can cut through that and get to a real solution, that's what I want. I'm frankly running for office because I've sat on the background and I've worked on campaigns, and I'm frustrated with this process myself. I feel like I'm a well-educated member of our community, and yet there are still issues that fly right past me. And so we need to put an end to that. And that's my goal as your city council member, is I'm going to make sure that we are as transparent as possible and that we're working towards real solutions, even if that's a little bit uncomfortable. Please visit my website, baker4smtx.com, if you'd like to donate or sign up and volunteer. Thank you all again, and I look forward to serving you as your Place 1 representative.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to tonight's forum. It's very, very important we have these dialogues and everybody participate in local government. If I'm elected to city council, I will seek opportunities to try to bring high-paying jobs to San Marcos. High-paying jobs yield more opportunities for single-family home ownership, which the city is working hard to promote. Good high-paying jobs and the expansion of the property tax base will also relieve some of the tax burden on homeowners and small businesses. It will provide a means for our citizens and family to flourish, and is an effort I absolutely support. Our city is growing and businesses are thriving, yet parking and transportation issues still exist. I would encourage alternative modes of transportation like bus and bicycle use. We should look to partner with the university to find solutions for transportation and parking needs. Our city government can operate with fiscal accountability while still maintaining quality infrastructure, basic public services, while providing resources to our first responders. Any policies I can support that will promote growth of the city while protecting our environment, our rivers, and our neighborhoods will be the highest priority. I am Mark Gleason, and I'm asking for your support and your vote. Thank you very much.
so much, everybody, for coming out and listening to everything all of us had to say. I want to thank the Four Rivers and the Chamber of Commerce for putting this all together. It was great. I'm running for city council because I'm exhausted with everything that's going on with housing and parking and the tremendous stuff that's happening to our river from the huge groups of people that go there and have no respect for it. And if elected to city council, I would advocate for all San Marcians. I would work to better the relationship between Texas State and San Marcos to ensure that we are a model for college towns, so that other college towns, like even Austin, can look at us and say, they've done it, why can't we? And if elected, I would make sure that housing standards in San Marcos are more than adequate for the beauty and uniqueness of the city. I would be honored to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to come out and speak tonight. I love the questions that we've been asked, and it's given me a lot to kind of think about in terms of the interface of our neighborhoods and our business community. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm going to be looking at that budget. Now, when it comes to EMS and fire and police, there's no way we're going to be cutting those. In fact, I know that we're down when it comes to our firefighters right now. So I'll be watching that budget. I'm also I just want to make sure that we're all on the same playing field, and I don't think that's happening right now with the business community. I think that we have a disconnect between our bureaucrats up there. Some of them are wonderful city staff. We've got some very hardworking, principled, innovative city staffers, but they're not all allowed to kind of offer their skill sets to our community. On the same juncture, we have business community members as well as private citizens who are very gifted and talented, and it's very difficult for them to find that area to plug in. Now, we've got lots of different opportunities, but oftentimes the communication is not flowing the way it needs to flow. And I hope as your elected official, I'll be able to open up those doors and make sure that people feel that they have a voice. As I've said before, a lot of people in our business community and our residences feel like they're not being listened to when it comes to the city manager. I'm very strong for giving financial incentives to green builders and those with an innovative product here in our community. And as I said, I would like to be the conduit to increase communication between our business and our residents and our city staff. Thank you for your time.
All right, everybody, that wraps up our event. Oh.
I'll give you a few extra seconds.
Can I stand up? Once again, I want to thank everybody for being here. I really appreciate it, and I have learned quite a bit. I made some promises when I first ran for office, and one of them was to protect our single-family neighborhoods, and that's what we done. I also made some promises about better paying jobs, and thank you for greater partnership. That got done. I don't make promises just to make them. If I'm going to make them, I'm going to do my best to keep my word, and I think I've done that as well. I don't play politics, and everybody in the dais knows that. I'm pretty a straight shooter and tell you what I feel and how I see it. And sometimes it comes across kind of rough. But I'll be honored to be your city councilman again. I have learned quite a bit. The first 2 years were kind of rough. The third year, you learn how things work. You know the budget. You know what funds go where and everything else like that. It's been a learning experience, and I would love to continue serving you. And now, when I say serving you, I mean the whole community of San Marcos, not only one sector of town. I'm talking about everyone. And that's the only way it's going to work. Thank you very much. My name is Sal Gonzalez, and I do appreciate your vote.
Okay, now we are done. I apologize. So I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your evening to be here. I feel that this is very important information for us, especially in a community where unfortunately I don't think we have enough people that get out and vote. So thank you for taking time and being invested in your community. And I also want to thank Lisa and Regina from Four Rivers for handling our registration and checking everyone in. And for the realtors, make sure that they have your registration information, because we will be sending out a straw poll to any of the realtors that were here today. I will send an email with a straw poll tomorrow. And you're welcome. I got done early. And you're all free to leave. Yes. Oh, yes. And if you would like to take one of these signs, that I believe in housing for all, for SMTX for all, please take one with you. Any questions? Did I miss anything? All right. Y'all have a wonderful night. I'm pretty sure there's still drinks back there if anybody wants one.
All right.